At Carlucci's, three men in custom suits cornered Elena Vasquez in her booth, while the rest of the patrons acted like they saw nothing. At table 9, a lone father with plaster dust lodged in the lines of his palms stopped mid-cut as he divided pizza for his 8-year-old, placed his utensils down, and stood with calm resolve. What happened next lasted precisely 15 seconds. One man's limb bent backwards with a clear crack. Another met the tiled floor. The third raised his hands and backed away, defeat broadcast in every movement. Quiet blanketed Carlucci's as Nathan Brooks dusted cement particles from his work clothes. Maya, his daughter, hardly looked up, still drawing. "My daddy was in the Navy," she declared, as though that single detail explained how a modest plumber could operate like calibrated machinery. Elena, fingers shaking around an ignored coffee, sensed something deeper, an instinct that those 15 seconds had redirected her existence, and that this gentle-voiced man with labor-worn knuckles held dimensions no one in Pinewood could imagine. For 3 years, Carlucci's had been Nathan's Friday tradition, a lifeline he gripped after his world collapsed and he and Maya settled in Pinewood. Crimson vinyl booths, garlic-saturated atmosphere, the murmur of family conversations. He'd constructed a sanctuary there, a copy of normal. But tonight the atmosphere hummed, the fine hairs on his arms standing. 8 years as a SEAL had taught him to respect those warnings. They'd preserved him where one misstep meant death. Pinewood was meant to be different, secure. Yet as Maya shaded a starfish, he detected trouble 3 tables over. Elena had entered 20 minutes before, alone, nervous, checking her phone every few moments with the intensity of someone being tracked. She'd requested coffee but only clutched the mug, hands pretending to study a menu. He'd recognized the sequence immediately. Someone fleeing who understood eyes were watching her. He had selected table 9 intentionally, spine to the wall, clear views to every entrance. Most patrons drifted in the comfortable pulse of Friday evening, but Nathan sensed tension mounting like atmosphere before lightning. "Daddy, why does that woman look frightened?" Maya whispered. Marker paused over the starfish's arm. She possessed her mother's sensitivity for people, a talent that had blessed and burdened the women in Nathan's world. He observed Elena again, the entrance glances, the posture tensing at each newcomer. "Sometimes adults have serious concerns, sweetheart," he said softly, cutting another piece. "Like your spelling quiz, just larger." His rhythm stayed tender even as his gaze swept in controlled patterns. 3 suited men walked in, bypassing the hostess and menus, advancing with the efficiency of people executing a task. Their footwear tapped across tile like a timer. The leader was built like a linebacker, silver streaking his hair, hands familiar with brutality. The remaining 2 flanked Elena with precise positioning, blocking escapes. Nathan's breathing transitioned into the rhythm of Coronado. Maya hummed, coloring, unaware of the rupture in their protected routine. "Ms. Vasquez," the leader stated, and surrounding discussions thinned. "You've been avoiding our communications." China rang against saucer as Elena lowered her cup. She was ashen, but maintained composure. "I informed your colleagues I'm not participating," she responded steadily. "Find another attorney." The man grinned without kindness and slid into the booth uninvited while his associates stood guard. Nathan's hold tightened on his fork. Every instinct demanded action, but Maya sat opposite him, and he'd vowed that his history would never seep into her reality. "See, that's where you're wrong, counselor," the man stated, relaxed threat in his voice. "You don't abandon Victor Moreno when you possess what you possess." He moved nearer, and Elena withdrew into the cushion. "Here's the arrangement. You abandon the Patterson case, erase your little findings, and return to custody battles and traffic violations." A ceramic dish exploded against the wall beside her head, pale fragments spraying crimson vinyl. One enforcer had grabbed it as emphasis. Now all 3 pressed in, voices hushed and blades sharp. Customers drifted out, wanting no involvement. The server disappeared toward the telephones. Nathan understood police wouldn't arrive in time. "Daddy!" Maya's tiny voice hooked him. He witnessed her expanding eyes, terror emerging, and something in him clicked. He'd abandoned the teams to provide her an ordinary existence, to keep her untainted. but sometimes protecting innocence demanded stepping back into darkness. He rose. The scraping of his seat felt like a signal in the stillness. The men hadn't registered him yet, too absorbed in crushing Elena, but she noticed him and froze. Not the courteous plumber who spoke please and thank you. A harder form had emerged, something deadly that had hibernated for 3 years. "Pardon me," Nathan stated, voice slicing cleanly through the space. The men rotated. Irritation shifted to evaluation as the leader absorbed the plaster flecks, the unremarkable frame, the composure. "Stay out of this, friend. Private discussion," the leader barked, but the other two adjusted, disturbed by Nathan's bearing, something in the idle angles that only skilled eyes detect. "I am staying out of this," Nathan responded, advancing. "My business is my daughter completing dinner peacefully." He glanced at the surrounded booth. "Yours is frightening citizens. Appears our interests clash." His tone remained conversational, but iron entered the room's climate. The leader straightened, 6'4", and anticipating withdrawal. Nathan eliminated distance in 3 strides, economical and clean. The following 15 seconds unfolded like ballet. His palm seized the leader's wrist, twisted with surgical exactness, bone fractured audibly. Even before the man struck tile, Nathan rotated, drove an elbow into the second enforcer's diaphragm, collapsing him. The third reached for his jacket. Nathan's grip captured his wrist, agony convincing him to release whatever he'd planned to produce. A push sent him stumbling into an empty table, palms raised. Only groans and Maya's marker filled the space. Nathan straightened his shirt and returned to table 9 as if he'd risen to refill beverages, gaze never abandoning the trio. The leader struggled upward, protecting a destroyed wrist, fury and suffering warring behind his eyes. "This isn't finished," he rasped. "It is," Nathan replied. "You're departing. You will disregard Ms. Vasquez, and if I encounter you, or anyone resembling you, threatening citizens here again, we'll have another conversation. You won't appreciate that one half as much as I will." The calm assurance made the man recoil. They hobbled toward the entrance, the leader stopping to deliver a guarantee of retaliation that Nathan had witnessed in a dozen nations and no longer dreaded. What he dreaded was Maya's stare, puzzled, wide, attempting to reframe her father. "My daddy was in the Navy," she informed the space plainly. "He defended people from villains." She resumed coloring as if Friday evenings occasionally involved neutralizing 3 men. Elena observed him, appreciation, amazement, and growing awareness blending on her features. Her hands were calm now, her mind was not. She recognized the distinction between a clumsy scuffle and professional violence, had questioned enough veterans to identify it. This man wasn't merely prior service. He was something scarcer, danger concealed among the everyday. "Thank you," she voiced softly, but Nathan was already dividing pizza again, as though nothing had altered. Discussions resumed in fragile pieces. Interest buzzed beneath the surface. People stared, recalculating who the reserved plumber was. Nathan sensed the attention. Familiar anxiety constricted his chest. This was what he'd escaped, why he'd selected obscurity and an unremarkable profession. He desired to be invisible in a small town, merely a dad. But violence possessed a long memory. The existence he'd constructed felt suddenly as delicate as that destroyed dish. "Daddy, are you all right?" Maya asked, extending toward him. She was the reason he'd exchanged deployments for drain repairs. "I'm fine, sweetheart," he stated, manufacturing a smile. "Just ensuring everyone can dine." He scanned faces, alarm, wonder, gratitude, and understood Pinewood had just become more complicated. Elena remained seated, coffee cold, phone pulsing with intimidations he didn't need to examine to comprehend. She kept observing, like an attorney constructing a case from scattered pieces. The police materialized 20 minutes later. The men had vanished. Cameras had failed for 15 crucial seconds. Nathan provided a statement stripped of history, a concerned civilian who intervened when a woman was harassed. Officers questioned and accepted simultaneously. Every witness confirmed his account. As they concluded, Elena approached. Maya had completed her starfish and was mixing blues for a whale. Nathan stiffened, the impulse to maintain boundaries intact rising. "I want to thank you appropriately," Elena stated, voice subdued. "Those intimidations weren't performance. You likely preserved my life." She examined him. and I believe you recognize that. I witnessed someone in difficulty, he stated. I couldn't remain seated. You operated like a soldier, she probed gently. Special operations. Navy, if your daughter's clue is accurate. She leaned nearer, a murmur. I've represented sufficient veterans to recognize. What's a former SEAL doing repairing pipes in Pinewood? Frost moved through him. This woman was dangerous in another manner, perceptive enough to penetrate the careful exterior he'd built. You're interpreting too much into it, he stated. I repair pipes. I raise my daughter. She positioned a card among the napkins. Those men operate for Victor Moreno. I'm investigating a defense contracting scandal you cannot fathom. People have perished. More will if nobody stops him. Her eyes locked his. I could utilize someone with your capabilities. I'm not participating, he stated, though he didn't remove the card. My combat days are finished. I have more critical things to defend. He glanced at Maya. Captain Marcus Hernandez, Elena stated, barely audible. The name struck like a hammer, loosening memories he'd interred under years of small-town existence. Hernandez had commanded him in Afghanistan, a man of integrity who perished protecting his squad during an assault that shouldn't have occurred. How do you possess that name? His voice was muted and weighted. Because Captain Hernandez was my father, Elena stated quietly. His final report indicates he perished saving Petty Officer Nathan Brooks and his complete squad. He perished because someone supplied the military defective equipment, the same someone I'm constructing a case against. Maya's coloring book dropped to the floor, detecting the transformation. The walls of Carlucci's appeared to press in. Hernandez had been more than a CO, guide, foundation, the man who taught that strength defends. Daddy? Maya's concerned voice pulled him back. The phantoms could pause, his daughter could not. We should leave, he stated, reaching for his wallet. Elena's hand intercepted his wrist, steady, unwavering. The contact surprised them both. In her eyes he witnessed the same determination that had motivated her father. Please, she stated. I understand it's substantial. I need your assistance. My father perished believing he was defending something valuable. The Patterson case, the one they want eliminated, connects to his death. Moreno supplied the armor that collapsed. If I demonstrate it, I can destroy him. Old pledges collided with new commitments. He'd promised Hernandez, over a flag-covered casket, to employ his abilities to defend. He'd promised Maya he'd never disappear into danger again. The two promises tore him apart. I cannot, he stated finally, regret hardening his voice. I have Maya. I won't risk abandoning her. Elena perceived the crack in his certainty. She regarded Maya, a child with excessive wisdom, too early, and softened. What if I can keep her protected while you assist? I have resources, security, methods to keep her removed from it. No, Nathan stated, fingers unconsciously contacting the dog tags beneath his shirt. He wore them daily. I won't risk her, not for anything. Maya slipped from the booth and grasped his hand. Daddy, is the frightened woman Captain Hernandez's daughter? The captain you share stories about? He crouched. Yes, but those are stories. Actual life is more complicated. But you always state Captain Hernandez was a hero, Maya stated, serious and small. Heroes assist people, even when it's frightening. She faced Elena. Only a child can inquire with such pure honesty. Are you attempting to be a hero like your daddy? The question fractured Elena's composure. I'm attempting, she whispered, but I cannot alone. Your dad is the sole person who can complete what mine initiated. Command's familiar burden settled onto Nathan's shoulders. He desired to lift Maya and vanish into the Midwest until nobody could locate them. But Hernandez's voice resonated. Some battles are necessary because people who cannot battle depend on you. If I assist, he stated slowly, no pledge yet. What precisely? And don't soften the edges. If you desire my assistance, provide me the complete truth. Elena glanced at Maya, reluctant to present ugliness before a child. Nathan shook his head. She remains. If it's going to affect our lives, she hears it here. I'll clarify. Victor Moreno operates Meridian Industries, Elena began, voice shifting courtroom exact. They've provided body armor for 5 years. It passes paper evaluations and fails in combat. Your unit wasn't the first to discover that the difficult way. It won't be the final if he isn't stopped. Nathan's jaw clenched. How many? At least 47 verified, she stated, the figure heavy. My father noticed patterns, casualty records, failures that didn't compute. He began constructing a case. He perished before he could complete. Official investigation closed, files sealed, some eliminated. But you possess backups, Nathan stated, interpreting the set of her expression. She nodded and extracted a flash drive from her purse. My father was cautious, in the optimal way. He concealed copies where investigators wouldn't search. I've invested 2 years reconstructing everything. Financial trails, testing irregularities, communications. Every occasion I approach, someone pushes back. Tonight wasn't their initial attempt. Maya listened, intensely concentrated. So the villain is harming soldiers like Captain Hernandez, she stated, small and burning. And Miss Elena wants to stop him. That's correct, Nathan stated gently. Stopping villains can be dangerous. That's why Daddy doesn't want to become involved. Even as he voiced it, the consideration of more funerals scorched. Selecting safety while others bled would pursue him. But Daddy, Maya insisted, child reasoning unassailable. If you don't assist, more soldiers suffer. That would make Captain Hernandez sad. Mommy stated doing the proper thing is frightening. That's why it's proper. His carefully reconstructed existence groaned at the foundations. Maya was correct. Elena was correct. Hernandez would be too. None of that diminished the risk to his daughter. If I do this, he stated at last, meeting Elena's hopeful eyes, we do it my method. No theatrics, no unnecessary risk. Maya's safety is rule 1. The instant I believe she's in danger, we're finished. No disputes. Clear? Crystal, Elena stated, relief washing over her features. I have a secure house, a protection squad. We can keep her secure while we operate. She studied him. But why did you genuinely leave? Men like you don't retire to repair leaks. He touched the vacant space where his wedding band had rested. Maya's mom perished 3 years ago, he stated, voice constricted. Cancer. I was deployed, didn't return in time. All that training signified nothing if I couldn't defend the people I loved. I departed, relocated here, attempted to provide Maya the ordinary life her mom desired. I'm deeply sorry, Elena stated, authentic and soft. She glanced at Maya, pretending not to listen, hearing everything. Perhaps this is how we honor them, your wife, my father. Stop other families from experiencing our grief. Nathan scanned Carlucci's, the stage where he'd rehearsed ordinary. People still stole glimpses. His cover had shattered. There was no returning this evening back into its container. All right, he stated, stepping off the precipice. I'll assist. First, I need to arrange safety for Maya. Elena hesitated, then offered, cautious. She could remain with me. My place is beyond town, solid security. I've been alone 2 years. It might be safer to remain together until this concludes. She faced Maya. I could utilize the company. Do you have television? Maya asked, seriously practical. And can I transport my art supplies? Television, rapid internet, and the largest art space you've ever witnessed, Elena stated, smiling genuinely for the first occasion. I used to paint before law school, never established a proper studio, but I retained everything. Something in Nathan's chest loosened. Perhaps Hernandez had attempted to teach him this. Strength isn't isolated, it's selecting the proper people to stand with. Perhaps he could stop fleeing. Okay, he stated, alarm and relief weaving together. We do it together, but I need everything on Moreno. Organizational chart, evidence, all of it. If we're pursuing a defense contractor, our facts must be unbreakable. I've got it, Elena stated, tapping her purse. Financial routes, emails, test findings, casualty information, everything my father perished to reveal. With your assistance, we can finally make it hold. They departed Carlucci's as a trio. A single father, a relentless attorney, a little girl with paint-stained fingers walking into uncertainty. Outside, Elena's phone buzzed. A fresh threat. Nathan examined it, jaw setting. He recognized the rhythm of intimidation. They'll intensify, he stated low, beyond Maya's hearing. Tonight was the warning. Tomorrow they operate for real. Are you certain? There's no reverse option. They killed him, Elena stated simply. My father perished attempting to defend soldiers. If I abandon, his death is meaningless. Nathan nodded. Some lines you select to cross and never retreat. As they headed to their vehicles, mission planning settled on him like a familiar harness. "Miss Elena," Maya voiced up, "are you going to be like family now?" The question froze both adults. In her direct manner, Maya had identified what they were constructing. Not only a case, but a life raft. "I'd appreciate that," Elena stated, kneeling to Maya's height. "Never had a little sister. Could be enjoyable." Happiness illuminated Maya's features, and Nathan sensed a thaw he hadn't permitted in 3 years. They traveled through quiet Pinewood toward Elena's property, a renovated farmhouse 10 miles distant, surrounded by open land that provided early warning. Discreet cameras, motion sensors, layered security, Nathan approved. Preparation preserved lives. Inside, warmth, comfortable furniture, spaces that invited remaining. Maya discovered the art space, eyes shining at easels and stacked canvas and tubes of pigment. Nathan's shoulders finally descended a fraction. Perhaps this could function. "So," Elena inquired as Maya explored, "what's first? How do we destroy a man like Moreno?" "We do what wins wars," Nathan stated, slipping into the familiar cadence. "Intelligence. Map his network. Identify lieutenants, financial flows, pressure points. Then we construct a case so secure neither cash nor influence can open it." He regarded Maya's doorway. "But priority one is her safety. Everything else is secondary." "I've contacted a friend," Elena stated. "Private security, former Secret Service, discreet and reliable. They'll place eyes on without alarming her." She hesitated. "Bringing a child into this, I understand the request, but she's safer with us than separated." He concurred. Distance would only render her a target. Better to keep her where he could shield her with his own hands. It wasn't the future he'd planned. Plans had terminated the day he received the call he'd missed goodbye. "Daddy?" Maya appeared, arms loaded with brushes. "Can I paint Captain Hernandez? I want to see him." It knocked the breath from him, and then felt proper. Enough fleeing. It was time to honor the past by confronting it. "I'd appreciate that," he stated, voice rough. "I've got photographs." As she established at the kitchen table, pieces of the former Nathan locked into position with the new. This is what Hernandez would have desired, not merely punishment, but a future for the living. 3 months later, Nathan stood in federal court as agents escorted Victor Moreno away in handcuffs. 47 deceased had names now. Elena's case was ironclad, constructed on her father's buried files, strengthened by Nathan's contacts and operational insight. It had been perilous, close calls, sleepless nights, moves and counter-moves. But together they'd maintained the line. They'd accomplished what they set out to do: honor Captain Marcus Hernandez. Reporters shouted. Agents slapped backs. Nathan's eyes were on the two people who mattered. Elena had become more than a partner. She was family, the kind that comprehends grief's burden and hope's defiance. Maya had flourished in their unusual household, her art bridging losses old and fresh. Her portrait of Captain Hernandez hung in Elena's office, guardian and reminder. "So, what now?" Elena asked on the courthouse steps, Maya skipping between them. "Moreno is finished. Families have justice. The military is rewriting oversight. Mission accomplished." Nathan regarded the woman who stood beside him in every storm and at the child whose world he'd sworn to defend. The mission wasn't finished. It had transformed shape. "Now we go home," he stated, "all of us." They traveled back to the farmhouse that had transformed into a refuge. In the rear view, he witnessed a family forged in fire, held together by purpose, stitched with love tough enough to endure. Hernandez would be proud, Nathan thought, not only of the verdict, but of the life they'd raised from the wreckage. Carlucci's still reserved their Friday table, now arranged for 3. Maya still drew while she ate, adding a fresh figure to her illustrations beside her dad and the memory of her mom. Elena had learned to cut perfect child-sized slices. Nathan discovered that defending your family doesn't mean concealing. It means standing in the open on your terms. The quiet plumber who once neutralized 3 men in 15 seconds still existed beneath his skin. Most days, though, Nathan Brooks was a father, a partner, a man who'd learned that the most difficult battles aren't always waged with fists, but with love, resolve, and the stubborn courage to believe in something larger than yourself. Hernandez's dog tags still rested against Nathan's chest, but they felt less like burden and more like a gift. a reminder that some sacrifices plant seeds the giver never gets to witness bloom. Preserving Nathan's life had preserved Maya's future and steadied Elena's heart, sending ripples of hope far beyond one mission. As Maya painted her newest piece, a family portrait with everyone she loved, living and gone, Nathan understood what victory really is. Not the gavel strike or the enemy in chains, but the simple, sacred quiet of observing your child grow up safe, surrounded by love, knowing the future you battled for is finally truly secure.